Welcome to the Tearing It Up podcast. I'm your host, Taryn. We'll be tearing it up, tearing it down, and tearing it apart, dissecting all things related to those who deviate from the standard. From leaders of their industry to leaders of mediocrity, and maybe a gear review or two thrown in. We shoot the shit and let the conversations flow, so if that's not your style, this may not be for you. Otherwise, listen in. Hope to light a fire in you somehow. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Another week of the Tearing It Up podcast. We have Carrie Hoffman here today, and I'm really excited to talk to her because she's got some really fun stuff she's doing with like adventure retreats, yoga retreats. She actually did one at the Tailwind Jungle Lodge, which is how we connected through Tamara Jacoby. So again, I'm excited to hear about her experience at the Tailwind Jungle Lodge because, as you all know, at least if you listen to that episode or episodes following, that is one of my, like, on my list of places to visit for sure. I'd love to at least go, and like as a guest, I do still have dreams of like putting on my own retreat there, but first I definitely want to just go stay as a guest and be in the jungle. So I can't wait to hear like a firsthand experience from someone who's set up a retreat there, had guests there, stayed there as a guest and whatnot. And on top of that, like, she's just all over the world traveling with her partner, putting on retreats and doing really amazing things for folks out there, getting them in with like a trauma-informed recovery. I just can't wait to dive in. Like I said, so Carrie, first off, where are you in the world right now as we record?
So, first of all, thank you so much for having me, Taryn. It's awesome to be here. And I am at my home base right now, which is an off-grid retreat property that my husband and I have created and live on when we're home in northern Arizona. So we're between Flagstaff and the Grand Canyon, and it's like 10 acres of pretty wild land here. And we're building a tiny house, but that's taking a long time. So I'm just coming to you from our little trailer that's home base right now.
That's amazing, and I can 100% relate. I'm also in my home base, which is a trailer on some land, and our tiny home building is also going really slowly. So, you know, we're comfortable here, though. We're definitely excited to be able to get some actual walls up and structure up someday, but for now, our little travel trailer, it's not little, but, you know, it feels little when all four of us, 2 dogs, and me and Andrew are all together in one spot at times. But in the summer, it's nice. The door can just be open, and so you're like, yep, go dogs, go do your thing. So that's amazing that you guys are doing something like that. And now this property that you have, though, is meant to be just like for retreats throughout the year.
So, not throughout the year because we're up at like 7,000 feet elevation. So we primarily do retreats here like spring through fall. That's our on season. And then in the winter, it gets too cold, too snowy to do glamping style retreats for sure. So we kind of go down to a more minimal setup in the winter. And then that's generally when my partner and I are traveling to other destinations to do our other retreats, like in different states and different countries that we go to.
Amazing. That's another thing that we relate on is I'm also at like 7,300 feet. So yeah, the wintertime activities that they're very different for sure. But you know, I thought about it like, oh, that'd be a great spot to kind of do like a weekend yoga retreat or something. But, you know, for now, we're like just building our home, getting out of town.
Yeah,
I'm curious.
I get that. It's a process.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. It's just overwhelming. You know, it takes a lot of time to even just plan things. And you got to jump through a lot of hoops too, as far as what people want, like the town, the county, all that kind of stuff, figuring out like what you can do, what you can't do, and all sorts of things. Plus, obviously, the cost of it all, I think, is the number one.
Yeah, for sure. I actually had an astrology reading back in 2021, which was like really impactful in us deciding to go for building the tiny house and like living out here full time, because we used to kind of share an apartment in Flagstaff and go back and forth. And so we decided to build the tiny house in 2021. And so now obviously it's 2024 and like our foundation is still getting built. But part of this astrology reading was expect delays. So that has been true. There have been lots of delays, and eventually it'll get done and it'll all be worth it, I'm sure. But just trying to roll with all the delays and challenges along the way.
Absolutely. That is one thing I'm working on so much in just my, as I get older, is patience in all things, but especially because, again, it's something we chat about a lot on the podcast, is just wanting that instantaneous like gratification and satisfaction and things, and just thinking like, oh yep, let's go ahead, we're gonna do this, and bam, it's done. Oh, I'm gonna start a business. Oh great, it's successful overnight, I don't have to do anything. And it's like, that's why a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs, whatnot, that we talk to, I really like to emphasize, like, what year are you on? Like 10, 15? Like, and it took you 5 years to really settle in, and you're still like very involved. It's not all just about, oh, like I said, overnight business success, and you can just sit back as the founder and like rake in the dough or something. Especially if you truly believe in your cause and you want to be, you're still going to be heavily involved, and it's still going to take a lot of work for a long time. And so just, to building a house or anything where it's like, yeah, cool, let's just throw some wood up and 4 walls, make a roof, and we're all set. Like, oh yeah, no, this is going to take a lot of time, and time just passes so quickly. And as you know, where you're at too, having just a shorter time in the year to even be able to build, it's like, you got to be like, hit the ground running as soon as that snow is gone and be able to just go. And that's definitely not always the case. You got kind of a shorter window to be able to do stuff, especially during those times. You're also trying to work, right? Like, you gotta put your retreats on and do other things, live a life. So it's really hard to do it all. But so Arizona, I think most people, you always think hot desert and whatnot. So you're at 7,000 feet. What are the temperatures like for you in the summer?
So I feel like everything is just heating up, climate change, unfortunately. So this summer has been hotter than ever. So we did have a couple weeks where it was in the 90s every day. And I feel like I can't use the word normal anymore because of like the climate crisis. But I'm tempted to say that's not normal. It used to be, like high around 80, and that would be the hottest it would get up here in the mountains. And that was like so lovely. But nowadays it is getting hotter than that. But luckily, just in the last couple of weeks, we've had our monsoons come in, which are like super beautiful and necessary and just nourishing for the land. So normally we get monsoons in late July, and then the temperatures start to go back down again. So this week it's been like back in the 80s as a high. So that's doable.
Okay. Yeah, that's similar to where I am. So I'm in Truckee, California, and exactly the same thing, where it's hard to say, that's not normal because it's becoming normal, but it has been so hot. Everyone here just keeps talking about like, God, this summer just feels like there's no relief. However, we don't get monsoons like that, and we need it so bad. We'll get summer thunderstorms and whatnot, but it a lot of times it can come without rain. So there's a big fire not too far from us from lightning strikes, and I'm like, okay, please bring on the rain. We need this heat to die down. We need some moisture. It is just a crazy world out there. And so Amber's in the Northwest, and same thing there. I was just up there in July. It was hot. It was in the 90s and things there. It's just insane. Now I'm curious, does any of that affect your, like, what you've been doing as far as your retreats? Like, have you been on kind of a certain schedule through the spring and summer, and now because of weather or anything, you're having to kind of pivot and go elsewhere? Like, maybe you're not doing them as much at your place there at your kind of home base, and you are traveling more through the summertime for your retreats?
Well, The weather definitely does affect it. And like last year, we also had a really hot summer. So last year, we still kept the same retreat schedule here, but we had to change some of the itinerary a bit because normally guests are really excited to go down to Sedona on one of our retreat days and hike and swim there. But Sedona is lower elevation than here, so it gets even hotter. So if it's like 100 in Sedona, then I'll just have to say, like, I'm really sorry, guys. It's just not safe to go down there and hike. So last year we had a few retreats in like June and July where we just had to switch it to more like mountain hiking days instead of Sedona. And luckily, we're surrounded by so much beauty that that's totally possible. And our guests are really awesome and flexible. But yeah, it's just a crazy place to live because there's so much elevation change and you go from desert to mountains to Grand Canyon, and like everywhere you go, depending on the elevation, the temperatures are changing. And then this year we've actually been dealing with some permitting issues, unfortunately, with our local government. So we haven't been having retreats in Arizona this year, and the changes for that reason, not because of weather. But it's something that we're navigating, and it's part of life, trying to get this new permit that our local government is requiring for our business now, and hopefully we're going to get it soon. But in the meantime, we've just sort of had to pivot and focus on our other destination retreats and grow that part of the business, which is good as well.
Yeah, totally. Well, back to kind of, or actually not even back to, but getting to your roots in this and how it all started. That's what I want to hear is, where did the ideas come from? How did you get into, like, did you go on a yoga retreat yourself first and that's kind of where it all spun from? Or was this just something that you wanted to be able to offer people knowing that there was a need for it?
Yeah, good question. So, my partner and I have been together for a long time, and we've always loved traveling, and we've always prioritized just like traveling the world as much as possible, whether it be like volunteering on farms or just super slow budget backpacking, that kind of thing. So we've gotten to travel a lot throughout like our 20s and early 30s. And what sort of prompted us to start doing retreats is really sobriety. So I quit drinking in 20, what year was it? 2016. I'm like, man, it's been a while now. So my life was kind of at a crossroads in 2016 when we were living in San Diego. And I finally got to that decision of like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. Alcohol is definitely no longer serving me. I'm going to quit. And luckily was able to find support and kind of a new community and people to help me do that. And then eventually, a few years later, my partner Zach made the same decision. We ended up moving to Thailand, and I got a job working at a backpackers hostel in Bangkok, helping them with like marketing and events and stuff like that. And so it was while we were in Thailand, we were also, meeting new people and getting to travel a lot more around Asia while I was working this job. But we were at a crossroads because we had just like left a very stable, kind of more normal life in San Diego. We had moved out of our place and like put all our stuff in storage and everything. And so we're wandering around Asia trying to figure out what the next step is. And I was becoming a yoga teacher. I was signed up for my teacher training. I had already been practicing for many years, and I knew that that was something that was definitely calling me. And so it was actually a friend of ours that we were traveling with. We went on a trip, the three of us, to the temples of Angkor Wat in Cambodia, which was really amazing. And we were all three kind of at the same point in our life, like, what are we doing? What's next? All of these questions. And she said, you guys should just do retreats. Like, Carrie, you're a yoga teacher. Zach, you're a chef. Yeah, my partner is an amazing chef. I'm lucky. And you guys have tons of travel experience. So why don't you do retreats? And I immediately was just like, no. I immediately was like, imposter syndrome. I can't do that. Everyone else is doing that. Like, why would I do it? However, the idea just really stuck. And by the end of like our 4-day trip, we were like, we're doing this. We had a business name and we started a website, and it started from there. and that was in 2018. So there's definitely been lots of learning along the way. And we started really small with like United States camp out style retreats that were just accessible and affordable. And we would invite our friends and just be like, please, please come, like help us test this out. And luckily, we always got just like amazing feedback that was super helpful. And over the years, it's grown into what Bigger Life Adventures is now, which is yoga retreats in different places. So we still do the camp outs in the United States, like Joshua Tree, and we have one in New Hampshire and here on our land in Arizona. And then we've also been able to accomplish our dream of taking people on longer retreats in like Thailand and Costa Rica. Now we have Portugal coming up next year. And we just sort of have grown organically, adding destinations as like the demand rises. And we focus a lot on authentic yoga, so teaching not only the movement, but also the philosophy, keeping it really trauma informed. And all our retreats are alcohol free and supportive of people in recovery from anything, not only addiction. I think you can be recovering from stress, you can be recovering from trauma. Like we're all kind of recovering from just like the hectic pace of life in this world. So I hope that our retreats are helpful for people getting through that.
That sounds amazing. And I love that you mentioned, it's not just for like overcoming addictions, because I think that a lot of these things, again, that's kind of what we think about. It's like you're off on a yoga retreat because you're trying to, again, overcome an addiction or something, but bringing up that, yeah, we're all in recovery mode after the last few years, especially certain, I feel like, age ranges just of like what's going on in life that generally happens through these ages is a lot of life changes and things. And I know, Amber, what was it last year or the year before that you did the grief recovery course?
Last year.
And so that's another thing where, and so many people in that group, right, it's not just grief of losing actually like someone passing away. There was many different reasons people were there in many different ways to go through grief. So I think that, yeah, kind of thinking recovery isn't just from one type of problem. It can be anything in perspective, of that person. Just simply like burnout. We've had a woman, Julia Arntz, come on and talk about burnout. So people really like just disconnecting and recovering from burnout, the constant go, go, go. And I love the idea of that it's not just yoga, right? You're taking people out on adventures and things like that. I know that some of your adventures from what we talked about before recording and what you've filled us in on, that, what is it? The one in Costa Rica, like tree climbing and all this really fun thing, like getting people outdoors and connecting with nature, not just like yoga, right? And did you, as a kid, were you super active in the outdoors and doing all of these things, or did that all kind of come together when creating the Bigger Life Adventures?
Good question. So as a kid, I would say I enjoyed nature, but I wasn't like athletic. I wasn't that adventurous. I grew up in the Midwest, so I think that has something to do with it. It's just not quite as like scenic or epic of landscapes where I was growing up. And I just grew up in the suburbs, so I was more of like an artsy theater kid, into that stuff. And although my family would always go camping, we would pull our little pop-up camper that all five of us would squeeze into and go to national parks like every summer. So I had that exposure. But I would say it was really in early sobriety and early recovery that I started to turn to the outdoors and adventuring more as something that really filled me up. And I think I was about like 90 days sober when I got to go on really, I think my first like unguided backpacking trip just with a friend in Sequoia National Park. And she had quit drinking about a year before me. So she was kind of like a mentor at this point. And the two of us just went on this amazing few nights out in the wilderness in Sequoia where we didn't see anyone else. And that was the first time that I just had this sense of like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be okay. Like everything is going to be all right. I'm in this new phase in life, and just being surrounded by that beautiful nature, challenging myself, realizing all the things my body was capable of, that was all huge for me. And so that has been a feeling that I've continued to pursue. And I'm just happy that even though I didn't really do it at a younger age in life, I found it now. And so now I think an important part of guiding the adventures that I guide is also keeping my own passion alive and continuing to like do my own adventures and, you know, be excited about that stuff even in my time off. And if I ever lose that, I think that would be like a big sign of burnout.
Yes. Absolutely.
Was making the decision to be sober and becoming sober, I know it's hard, but what was that like for you?
Oh, it was really, really hard. And I definitely just felt like it was my last choice. Like I didn't have any other option. So I was in San Diego, like working in the brewery scene and working in different bars and just like surrounded by people who were drinking like every day, it seemed. And so I was too. And it was one of those things that like worked until it didn't. It was really fun for many years, and then like things started to get more chaotic, and there started to be more and more blackouts and like fights with my husband that I wouldn't remember, and just like accidents and like making bad decisions. And so I had like kind of tried every other option. I had tried taking breaks. I had tried not drinking at home. I had tried like putting all these different boundaries around myself. And eventually it just got to the point where I had like such a terrible weekend with a lot of bad decisions that I was like, I'm done. I have no other choice. I have to quit. And so that was my story. But nowadays, I'm really excited that more and more people are starting to choose alcohol-free living before they get to that point, before things get like really bad. And I think that it's becoming more normalized. It's slowly but surely changing. And so I just am happy for anyone who makes a decision to eliminate something that's not working in their life, whether it's because they consider themselves to be like an alcoholic, in quotes, if you even believe in that word, or just whether they want to, you know, better their own life and like be more energized.
It's I love that choice to make. And I feel like our society is so dependent upon alcohol. Like to have a gathering without alcohol is like a little, like people are like, what? No alcohol? So it's really impressive that you have entire retreats where it's like, look guys, none of it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Thank you. I mean, it's the only like drug or toxic substance that we have to justify not using. You know, nobody goes around saying like, oh, why don't you do Coke? But if you don't drink, people are always like, why don't you drink?
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Like people are shell shocked by it. It's like, well, because A, it's not great for you. You're poisoning yourself. Like it screws your gut up. Many reasons.
Yeah. I love that's hilarious. You're so right. The reaction of like, oh, like if you say you don't, even weed, like people are like, oh, you don't smoke? Oh, whatever. Like not as surprised as just alcohol, or even if it's just a day that you're like going to an event and not drinking. Like, what? Why? That's weird. It's like,
are you pregnant?
Yeah, totally. I hate that question so much, but it is such a, you know, social thing, right? Everything, like Amber said, kind of is surrounded by it as far as gathering events and things like that. So I think the option of having all these non-alcoholic drinks and beers and things like that kind of help normalize that for people, that they can show up and they can still have a drink in their hand that's not a Coca-Cola or something. And, you know, there's people who genuinely like the taste of beer and just don't want the alcohol part anymore. And I am one of those as far as like enjoying the taste of beer, but sometimes, I don't necessarily like, I got something to do tomorrow, or I'm just not feeling like I just don't want the alcohol part. So there's some actual good non-alcoholic beers these days that I'm like, I will definitely buy a 6-pack of that and enjoy that at home. And like I said, I like the taste of it, but I don't always want to feel the buzz or the repercussions from it the next day. I like to have a mix of options. I like to have the options for sure. And for folks that it just makes it easier, I think, too, to kind of bridge the gap of stepping away from it for whatever your reasons may be. And I also love you mentioning that it's becoming more normalized, or people are stepping away from it before they hit, like a rock bottom, so to speak. They're just like, yeah, you know what? I'm not enjoying, like, kind of feeling foggy or something after a couple of drinks, especially as we get older. We always talk about, goodness gracious, the recovery is so much harder. So whereas 3 drinks, you feel that the next day, it's like, what the heck? Like, I was just hanging out with friends trying to enjoy the time, not trying to like party. And it's like, ugh, God, I don't want to notice that at the gym the next day.
Yeah, exactly. And if I may just shout out, like Athletic Brewing, one of those companies that's making amazing NA craft beers. I'm an ambassador for them.
Oh, cool.
And I love how they're making it more of a community of like active, outdoorsy people who are just like choosing to go NA for a variety of reasons, not just like the rock bottom, I am in trouble reason, like we mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so shout out Athletic Brewing.
Woo woo!
Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
NA aperitifs, like herbal drinks, which is exciting because they're also good for you.
Yeah, right. That little bit of gut health in them or something. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's I mean, like I said, it's awesome that it's becoming more normalized too, because that way you're getting less of the questions when you are opting not to, because so many people are, what are they, sober curious. So it's just, like I said, becoming more of a thing that it's easier to go places and people don't have to just ask, like, why do you care if I just don't feel like getting drunk tonight or something?
Yeah.
But
or hoorah to the sober life. Like,
yeah, totally.
Shout out to that.
Just making life choices for yourself. Cool. Like, good job, everybody, making the decision that feels best for you. I would love to hear about how these retreats, like the tree climbing retreat, and what else was there? Hold on, that I really wanted to ask you about. Oh, the Catalina Island, so I love this, that you camp on the beach every night and have a truck come down for the backpacks to make hiking more accessible. And that's something you don't always see, where there are people out there who would love to do something like this, but the fact that you maybe have to like train or something to be able to feel capable enough to go on these hikes, or simply have something in their life that doesn't make it accessible for them. Like maybe they've got something in their body going on that it just is so hard for them to do something like this, and having the option that gear can just come to you and you are able to walk at a pace or with a weight that is comfortable for you, but you still get to experience all this. That's amazing.
Yeah, so that trip has been so fun every year. It's the Trans Catalina Trail, which goes all the way across Catalina Island from south to north. And so this was just one of those trails that my husband and I ended up hiking in like 2017 for the first time, just normal on our own with our own backpacks. And it was so beautiful and also challenging. And we were like, this is super cool. So as soon as we realized that there was the option to hire the gear haul service, we realized that we could make that into a retreat. Because basically it's still a backpacking trip. It's still super challenging. It's still multiple days of hiking and camping in these beautiful places. But because we can get that truck to transport everyone's like big bags each day from one campsite to the next, it does make it more accessible. And it also makes it possible for Zach to cook really good food for everyone every night, which is definitely one of the priorities on our retreats. He is an amazing plant-based chef, and he can just like whip up these magical meals like over a campfire, which is so impressive to me.
Yes.
I don't know how he does it, but it's because of having that gear haul that we can bring like a cooler, and we can bring some ingredients and not just eat backpacker food the whole time. But
Yeah.
I do still always like send people a training plan for that trip, if they want to be really ready, because we have a saying, hills hurt but couches kill. And it is really hilly. Even though you're starting and ending at sea level, there are a lot of ups and downs on the Trans Catalina Trail, and amazing views, and you see buffalo, and you camp on these like incredible secluded beaches. But it is a challenge. And so for our guests who have been into that, it's always been one of those trips where they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of myself that I did this at the end. And that is so satisfying for us to just see people get to grow and challenge themselves in new ways, that do things that they didn't even know were possible.
It's lovely seeing that in people.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the best gifts. And I think a lot of people who do what you're doing or teaching or offer some kind of service like that, that is what they truly get out of it, is giving and teaching in any capacity, is like seeing the people light up and like see that something click in their mind, something kind of change, and just to be proud that they did this or learned how to do this or whatever it is. It's like, I don't know, you feel like you're actually giving them some, like a gift that has no like price, you know, like it's just amazing to see it, like really hits them in the soul.
Yeah, totally. And it's a gift for us too, you know, it's like so fulfilling to just get to spend time with really cool people and get to like share travel stories and recovery stories, and just it's like getting to watch people we already know connect with other people that they're just meeting. And we get a lot of returning guests like coming back on different retreats year after year. So that's always fun when we have like some people that we know and some new people, and just I love like bringing communities together, and that aspect of it is really amazing as well. We also have a Facebook group now called Bigger Life Adventurers, so that's helping people stay more connected when we're all at home, when we're not together. But yeah, just like seeing such a supportive community really come together on all of these trips has been a gift for us.
That speaks volumes that you have people like come back and just doing the different locations and different retreats, that they know they're getting value out of this and have this trust in you. Because I assume, you know, most retreats can cost a pretty penny, right? Because it's interesting. When I looked into putting one on at the Tailwind Jungle Lodge, it's just like, man, the cost you have to make it just to cover the basis of the stay there, food there for people. It's like, gosh, there's not much you can do to lower it for people to come into this. So like I said, that speaks volumes of how these retreats are, that people come back time and time again for you and your retreats, just at the different locations and adventures. It's not the same thing every time. It's a different experience each time. And that provides so much value to folks that they keep returning. With the one that you did at Tailwind Jungle Lodge, did you, what was that setup like? Was that yoga? Did you do adventures there too?
Yeah, so we always incorporate yoga and adventures, and it's kind of like yoga is the routine morning and evening classes, and then we'll add like special workshops as time allows too. And that's what kind of helps people, I think, really just feel grounded and start to get more connected to their own bodies, and start to just be more mindful and slow down from that kind of strenuous pace of day-to-day life that many of us have. So the yoga is always there. Yoga is really important to me to teach and share. And then the adventures will be things that we do on some of the days, depending on what's around us. So at Tailwind, we got to go on this awesome like jungle beach hike that the owners guided us on, and that was really cool. Then one of the days we got to go sea kayaking to this other secluded beach. And one of the other days we went on like a private sailing adventure for sunset. So we always just pick adventures based on what's local, what's really good, and also trying to support sustainable businesses and tour guides and all of that as well when we're choosing those adventures. So Tailwind, it was a lot of awesome jungle beach stuff, which was so fun.
Sounds amazing. And I love that you're just connecting to what is around in that community to kind of just give back instead of feel like you're taking when you're showing up, putting on a retreat, bringing people there. Like you're also providing something to the economy in that local community. And like the Costa Rica tree climbing in the cloud forest in Costa Rica, that sounds awesome. You were harnessed up climbing trees with monkeys and lizards and all the things around that ecosystem.
Yeah, so that is one of my favorite things ever in life. So it makes me smile so big just to think about it. We have been lucky enough to just connect with some locals in the Monteverde area in Costa Rica who are like basically professional tree climbers now. And so they have a nonprofit where they teach tree climbing to local school kids and then also guide groups like our retreats and stuff. And the focus there is also on sustainability and on like saving the cloud forest and on getting people up close and personal with these amazing strangler fig trees, they're called, so that people care more and people want to, like fight climate change and help this ecosystem survive, because the actual clouds that the trees depend on in this part of Costa Rica are getting higher and higher every year. And so if the clouds are getting higher because of climate change, then that ecosystem that lives in the treetops with all those plants and animals and epiphytes, it can't survive without those clouds, without that moisture. So that's kind of like the sad part of it. But on our retreats, yes, we get to go tree climbing with full on rock climbing gear. And if you can picture these trees, they're like the trees that are formed basically from a bunch of like vines and roots growing down around the base of the host tree. And so you're like hanging off of like these roots and branches, and like there's handholds, and sometimes there's like holes in the trees where it's more like crack climbing and you stick your hand in there. And it's like such an incredible experience. You also climb barefoot on the trees instead of with climbing shoes, which I love. Yeah, so I'm obsessed with tree climbing in Costa Rica now. I do rock climbs, but a couple years ago, my husband had a pretty bad rock climbing fall. So climbing the trees in Costa Rica has kind of been like part of our healing journey after his accident as well. His first climb back was actually on a tree after his broken ankle accident. And I'm just like so into the trees now. It's such a different energy than climbing on rock. It's so like nurturing and supportive. Yeah.
And alive. It's a live thing.
Yeah. Yes, you're climbing a living organism that's like living and growing and breathing. It's super cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like you just... Go ahead.
Oh, you go, Taryn.
No, you go.
Okay. I was going to say your retreats, they touch on so many bases. Like you're doing environmental impact, you're doing sober living, you're doing yoga. Like it's so submersive on so many points. If you could look back at beginning these retreats, Carrie, and say to her when you were having your imposter syndrome, what would you say to her?
Oh man. I have to think about that for a moment.
Yeah, especially because you guys, I can't even put it into words like how submersive these retreats sound. Like it's so lovely to be able to go on a retreat for anyone who lives in today's society of the hustle and bustle and grinding and all this other kind of stuff, to be able to step away from that life and climb a living organism, get your feet on the ground, start your day and end your day with yoga and do it sober. That's huge. It's like blowing my mind to know that there's something like this out there.
Aw, Thank you. I mean, that is the goal, and I think it is huge, and I think it is super meaningful for people. So if I had to go back to like 2018, just starting out Carrie, I would probably tell her to just go for it. Like, believe in yourself. You have the skills necessary, you have the experience necessary, and just like believe it and be patient and keep doing this and keep offering this because it's going to grow and it's going to, change lives and change your life as well. I think I would say something like that.
I love it.
Absolutely. I think that's huge and the perfect thing because, like you said, as we look, when we're feeling that imposter syndrome, it's all those questions. Is this worth it? Is it going to do anything? Is anyone going to get anything out of this? Like, is it needed? Just all these questions because you're scared to kind of do it. And in your heart of hearts, you know that, yeah, it should be out there and people do need it. That's why I had the urge to even do it. But it's so scary to put yourself out there into, like, for people to say no to you or to be like, oh, that sounds that like you just expect the negative feedback. And that's all you start to hear when you have imposter syndrome is those people who don't need it, don't want it, rather than remembering why you even wanted to start in the first place.
Yeah, and it takes time to find your people. And, we've had like plenty of retreat guests that end up like not coming back because maybe it's not exactly what they're looking for. But that's all part of the process. And I think that's something to not be afraid of with anything you're starting or any entrepreneurial venture is like, you have to like kind of go through the process and figure out who your people are and who your audience specifically is, and then just like nurture them and stick with them. And it doesn't have to be for everyone,
Exactly.
Like obviously our retreats they're not for like the more resort type travelers who want to like stay in a luxury hotel room and have a cocktail every night. Like those aren't our people, and that's fine. Like they can do their thing and we'll keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
1,000%. What does your clientele base average look like? Like age wise, area, like is there a average or a standard, or is it just kind of like all accumulative, collective?
So we get a really wide range of ages, which I love.
Yes.
Most retreats we have probably like 20s up to 60s or even 70s in age sometimes. And I feel like just in general, more women are signing up for yoga retreats. So we do get more women, but we're open to all genders. We want like more guys to start coming. And so that's happening a little bit at a time. We had a few guys at Tailwind. That was really good. I also think it's because I do most of the marketing, so maybe I just naturally like speak more to women. But we're open to all, and we get that broad age range and just different people from all sorts of different walks of life. We've had retreats with college students who are just like figuring out what they're going to do in the world, all the way up to like people who recently retired and now they have like more freedom to travel. So it's been really diverse, and we definitely get a lot of people who do consider themselves to be sober 100% of the time. But we also get lots of people who aren't, who just really appreciate doing an alcohol-free trip in a more mindful, healthy way with like more of a crowd that doesn't need to party, that wants to like go deeper,
That's so refreshing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, it takes the pressure off. Like you mentioned, people who maybe aren't 100% sober outside of it, that you can go do this. And it's not just are we going to have a drink before the activity, after the activity, or, who wants to sit around and do this instead of that? Except you don't have to explain yourself for choosing not to have a cocktail or whatnot. Again, just takes off some pressure. We're like, no, I'm really here just to simmer down, slow down, and appreciate everything and kind of be more in tune with my body and surroundings. So just simply not having the pressure. And that's where sometimes, like I'll just feel like, okay, I'm just gonna stay home because I don't even want to have the pressure or option, to have to do that or want to do it. But that's like, so just creating the space, especially with the outdoor adventures. We touched on Athletic Brewing and how what they're marketing towards is all these outdoor adventures and the non-alcoholic beer, because so many of those adventures are like coincide, they're related to like, okay, now beer after or before or during or whatnot. So I like that they are really touching to the outdoor adventurous with non-alcoholic beer there.
Yeah.
And giving people option.
Yeah,
like, yep, after the bike ride, here's your athletic.
Yeah, totally. I just love that they exist, that there's more options now. And that's definitely part of our intention with running the alcohol-free retreats, is just to have people have the option of a safe space where that's not even on the table. Because I know when I first quit drinking, I was a little intimidated to go back out traveling and like backpacking, because the travel scene can involve so much pressure to like party as a way to meet people or as a way to experience the culture, yada yada. But I pretty quickly found that I just had such a better time traveling without drinking, because I could like get up early and see sunrise. I could do more of the adventure type stuff, and I could just like feel better throughout the whole trip compared to when I was, going to the bar at night. And so I know that like I'm kind of more of like a bold person as far as willingness to like do things on my own and put myself out there. But with the retreats, I just want to create a safe space for people who maybe do feel a little bit more nervous to travel without drinking, and like create a lovely supportive community where they can feel empowered to do that, and then hopefully grow from there and go and do it on their own, without even a retreat if they want to in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. It is beautiful of just bringing them out of their shell to like, okay, now you've been around a group of people that you didn't know, and you didn't need that boost of kind of liquid courage, to start the conversation or anything. And so hopefully that can be something they carry on without them, of going out and meeting new people without needing that little boost. Cause I know for sure I've felt that and needed it. But I think as I get older, like you mentioned, just it gets a little bit easier to kind of put yourself out there, but that also takes a lot of work with just what you've done in life and just being sure of yourself and who you are and whatnot. And a lot of people still just need a little extra help with that and support with that. So that's amazing that you can create that environment for them. And like these retreats just stay with people so far outside of them, is what it seems. Or like it's not just, hey, I went to this retreat, now it's done and dusted, and that was cool and fun, but so that you're actually giving them value they can take with them afterwards for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
And before we get out of here, I do have just a couple things. I would love to hear what you do outside of retreats. Like, what do you do for fun, Carrie? Like, what are your hobbies when you're not working? Because we did mention, how easy it is to, like with burnout, it can be so easy when you're doing something you love and something you love, backpacking, getting out there, doing these things, but you're doing it for, work too. So how do you maintain getting out there and continuing to enjoy it for yourself? Are you out backpacking regularly, running, hiking? What's the day to day?
Ooh, I love this question. So, my partner and I have a van, so we definitely try to just get out on our own, like van life, road trips, a couple times a year when we can to, we're kind of getting old, so I feel like it comes with age, like kind of going back to the same places that you always love. So like most years we end up in Southwest Colorado in the San Juans. That's a favorite place to go and just like disconnect and be in the beautiful mountains and do some hiking. We go to Burning Man most years, so we're getting ready for that right now and taking a group of alcohol-free people to Burning Man, but just for fun, just as friends. So that's going to be really cool. And in my day-to-day, I'm I'm pretty into trail running nowadays. I sort of got swept up in that world during the pandemic when all the gyms and yoga studios shut down in Flagstaff, and like my friends were doing it, and I had always been like a hiker and kind of like an occasional road runner, but I started getting out on the trails, training for some ultras, and I realized like you don't have to run the whole time. It's a lot of hiking, so I like that aspect of it.
Noted.
So trail running is definitely like my number one kind of me time, stress relief, and way I connect with my friends nowadays as well.
I love it. I love it.
Solid one.
And I love your take on ultra running because there's a big trail running community here in Tahoe for sure. I've never been a big fan of running, but I know like working at a store that specialized in trail running, a lot of staff would do it. And, I went out a few times with them and whatnot. And a couple of my friends always trying to tell me like, oh, don't worry. Trail running is there's no pace. It's not fast. You can do whatever. It's like fast hiking or slow hiking and all this. And I'm like, yeah, but still the endurance it takes to go for the miles and miles that you guys go is crazy. But yeah, it is definitely not just running a 7-minute mile for 20 miles. It's like 15-minute miles from some of these that have crazy elevation and stuff. I remember I have a friend who is a like professional ultra runner, and she's like, Taryn, I run slow. I'm doing like a 15-minute mile. I'm like, yeah, Helen, but with a, like 2,000 foot elevation in half a mile or something. So like that would put my mile at 30 minutes. but like, to your point,
okay.
It's like, yep. Exactly. It's accepted. It is accepted in trail running for sure. Like, yeah, you're gonna be walking. Look at videos, trail running, not very exciting.
Yeah, I know. Like there's all these live streams of all these cool races nowadays, and I do get into them, but then I'm just like, this is so nerdy to be into. Like we're just watching people like hike up a mountain for like hours. But
exactly. It's fun. Like watching someone go for a walk. Yeah, totally. But it's amazing what those ultra runners do. And just enjoying that. I wish I could really enjoy it, but maybe someday. Maybe I'll find my running era one day, but
that's okay. You're a biker, right? You have your own things that you love.
Totally. Yeah, can't do it all. Awesome. Can't do it all, but there's pressure to feel like you should for sure, especially in certain communities like this one. But I am curious, what retreats do you have coming up that people might still be able to get into, and what retreats are you like super excited for? I see on your website you've got already things listed for obviously 2025, but also 2026. So lots of options coming up, but yeah, let us know if there's anything that people can still hop on this year, or maybe your favorites coming up in the next year.
Yeah, so unfortunately we're down to like one spot left for one retreat this year, but I would love for someone listening to take it if they're interested. Our Joshua Tree Desert Yoga Campout in October has one bring your own tent camping spot left, and that one's really fun with just like outdoor yoga in the desert, this amazing private campground and rock climbing and exploring all the fun, quirky, artistic stuff around Joshua Tree. And then we do tend to like book things pretty far in advance, which is why we're already into next year. So starting in 2025, we have a retreat in Guatemala, which is actually going to be our first retreat with plant medicine ceremonies. So we're linked up with some really professional, experienced facilitators for ayahuasca in Guatemala and doing a retreat with them. So that will be definitely a really cool deep dive into the healing capabilities of that medicine for anyone who's feeling the call to that, along with beautiful nature right on the lake, volcanoes all around it. Oh my gosh, it's gorgeous. So we'll add on some volcano hiking to that one as well. And then we have a couple adventure tours in the Yucatan, Mexico coming up. Costa Rica, we're usually there every March, so there's still space for Costa Rica Cloud Forest yoga and tree climbing next March. After that, we have Catalina. We have a lot coming up.
Yeah.
The Catalina Island backpacking trip is always in the spring, so that one's in May next year. And then we're going to Portugal for the first time ever, and Thailand next fall. So we did our first Thailand retreat last fall, and then the place we hosted it is so popular that we had to wait 2 more years to get back there. But that's cool. It's already coming up next fall. So for super advanced planners, November 2025 for Thailand. And that one's really special because we get to go to the ethical elephant sanctuary and experience some meditation classes with Buddhist monks and just really, really cool cultural things like that.
Beautiful.
That's amazing and jam-packed. I love that you have the option though that far in advance for people, because I'm not a huge advanced planner, or something I'm working on too, but that definitely allows for budgeting a lot better too for people who have to. If you're able to book the retreat itself, and then you can actually budget for travel, maybe doing something before, after, not having the stress of how some might feel if you are taking time off work, but maybe it's not PTO, that, yeah, you have planned well enough in advance that when you go on this, you can come home and you're not just thrown back into the hustle and bustle like usually happens for me after a vacation. It's cool, no time to even rest and revel in what just happened. It's just cool, done, right, hit the ground running again. So I love that it's even an option for a year in advance planning, because a lot of times it's not. You're oh wow, this is in 6 months. It can seem far away, but we all know how fast time flies. So you're oh nope, not fast at all. Or I mean, not it was here in no time. And one last thing I have a question about, because I saw this on your website, and I think that there's definitely folks in our audience who could benefit from this if it's still available, but your recovery scholarships. Do you still offer those, and how do those work?
Yes, I'm so glad you asked, because I wanted to bring that up as well. So accessibility for these retreats is huge for us, and we really want anyone who could benefit from such a healing, out of comfort zone experience to be able to come. So for every retreat we do, we offer 1 or 2 half-price recovery scholarships. And like we said earlier, it doesn't have to be addiction recovery. It can be any type of recovery. So anyone who's recovering from something and has financial need where they can't afford the full price of the retreat on their own can apply for a recovery scholarship through our website. And I'm just always going to offer those. I always want people who aren't rolling in the dough to still be able to come and have a transformational retreat experience.
Yeah.
Incredible.
That's amazing. And you can also, for those not in that financial need, or maybe have a business, you can donate towards those recovery scholarships too, I see. So that's another amazing
totally
thing.
We've had a lot of generous people who have come on past retreats ask to donate to the scholarship fund. So yeah, that's amazing that there are so many generous people in the world, and we're always going to try to find ways to give more scholarships, because I'd say 100% of the time the scholarship guests are people who are just fully present, living it up, getting so much out of it when they come. And I love to see that. And I love to see the ripple effect it has outwards in the rest of their life when they go back home too. So yeah, always looking for ways to provide more accessibility to all types of people for these retreats.
I love it. That's amazing. We'll be sure to link all that information in the show notes. And lastly, I'd love for you to let the people out there, if there's anything you want to add, please feel free to, and also where people can find you, best way to kind of follow you or contact you and stay up to date with upcoming retreats or anything that you have to share.
Sure. So biggerlifeadventures.com is our site. And then we're on pretty much all the socials as Bigger Life Adventures. If you want to join our Facebook group to have like an online supportive community, just search Bigger Life Adventurers on Facebook. Maybe we can add that to the notes also.
Definitely.
And lastly, just like a little heads up for anyone who's interested but maybe not super into practicing yoga. Our newest offering that's happening in January and February are the 2 Yucatan, Mexico adventure tours. So those are actually not yoga retreats. We're taking the new electric train that goes all through the Yucatan and Mexico and just doing like the Mayan ruins and like cultural sites and going to waterfalls and going hiking, and we're like moving from place to place. So it's more of a tour, so there's not really time for yoga, although people can check out local yoga studio classes if they want to. But just putting that out there for anyone who might be listening that's like, I don't want to do yoga every day. We're branching out, we're expanding, so those trips are a little bit different, still alcohol free, still super cool, like-minded community, but it's an adventure tour in Mexico instead of a yoga retreat.
I love it. I love it. Awesome, Carrie. Well, thank you so much. It was lovely to hear your story, how it got started, and learn all about your offerings with Bigger Life Adventures. I love that you've branched out, adding that Yucatan tour, and just, again, accessibility for folks. And the option of going to a local studio like that, I would totally be down for that. I love the yoga every day, but the option to kind of just do this awesome tour, but also go check out the local studios and still get that in, and you get a little more kind of like just control over your day to day. Like, I want to do this. I'm gonna do this morning, or I'm not gonna.
Yeah, totally. There's like a little bit more freedom to go find like the food that you want, the stuff that you want to do on like the free days, instead of having a set retreat schedule.
Yep. A little bit of something for everybody.
Totally.
Very
That's the
cool.
idea.
Yes. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us. And folks out there, follow Bigger Life Adventures, check out the retreats, check out that Facebook group if you're interested in connecting with the community virtually first. And like I said, you can find all that in the show notes. One spot with one retreat left this year. Everything else looks like it's open for the next year. So find Carrie, reach out, and hopefully someone out there, I'd love to see them getting on your retreat as well. But it was lovely chatting with you, and I'm sure we will chat again in the future.
Thank you so much. It was great being here. Thank you, Taryn and Amber. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Goodbye, everybody out there. We will talk to you next week. We hope you enjoyed this episode and would do us a huge favor, since we don't have any sponsors or anything like that, and would rate and review us on whatever platform it is you use, Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, whatever it is. And if you're listening and downloading just through the website, tearingituppodcast.com, leave comments. We'll definitely engage back with you. And on social media right now, we're just on Instagram. Tearing It Up Podcast is the handle. Like the post, share the post, comment on the post, whatever it is you got. Show us your love so we just stay relevant and show up in the rankings at all. So again, rate and review, please. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.